Have you ever been like stuck in a conflict, one that just keeps getting worse, and you almost feel like someone somewhere is just loving the chaos? Or maybe you face those really tough calls, between what feels like winning and just doing what feels right deep down. We all hit those moments. So today we're doing a deep dive into this really powerful message from Pastor Florin over at Agape Community Church. It's from his series, It's Complicated, and this one was called Lawsuits. Oh, yeah. And he started off with this really unexpected analogy from Redwood National Park, but it was actually a scene from Return of the Jedi. Kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, that scene. It's classic, right? Luke and Vader, father, son, that whole intense lightsaber battle. And you've got Emperor Palpatine just lurking there, totally eating it up, right? Loving the conflict, pushing them on. And what Pastor Florin brought out so well is how that's not just, Star Wars stuff. It actually connects to, like, our spiritual reality. Our adversary thrives when God's people are divided, when we're fighting each other, especially when it gets public and messy. And that is exactly what the Apostle Paul was getting at in his letter to the Corinthians. You see it in chapters 5, 6, 7. All about handling these messy internal church family problems.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's what we want to do today. Go beyond just, hearing the sermon. We really want to unpack what this means for us, for you, especially when it comes to handling disputes and figuring out what it looks like to actually live out Jesus's way in our real everyday lives. Okay, so let's jump in. Pastor Florin took us into 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 1 through 11. And this is where Paul is calling out church members in ancient Corinth because they were literally suing each other in Roman court. And Paul just hits them with this question, like, do you dare to take it before the ungodly for judgment instead of before the Lord's people? Wow. Why was that such a bombshell question?
It really makes you stop, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To why it was so shocking. You kind of have to picture Corinth back then. It was this major Roman city, very sophisticated. And right in the center, they had the bema.
The bema?
Yeah, it was this raised public platform. The Roman governor would sit there, hand out judgments. It was a huge symbol of Roman power, Roman law. And Paul actually knew this system firsthand. Acts 18 tells us he stood before the bema himself. So his issue wasn't necessarily that the Roman system was bad, but it was about the authority they were running to. When believers, people claiming to follow Jesus, took their family squabbles to this pagan court, it said something really profound about where they thought real justice came from. It kind of undermined their witness.
Okay, that puts it in perspective. It wasn't just procedural, it was symbolic. But then Paul pushes it even further. He says, do you not know that the Lord's people will judge the world? And if you were to judge the world, are you not competent to judge trivial cases? Do you not know that we will judge angels? Okay, hold on. Judging angels, that part really jumps out. What on earth does that mean for us? And how does it connect to, like, settling arguments?
Yeah, it's a mind bender, right? So Paul's tapping into his deep Jewish background here. He understood that the whole problem of sin and chaos didn't start with humans. It started way back with rebellion in the heavenly realms. Think the serpent or those children of God in Genesis who were part of God's counsel but rebelled. So God's big plan, in Paul's view, isn't just saving people. It's like a whole cosmic reset. Through Jesus, God's making followers of Jesus the new children of God. And get this, they're destined to actually judge those rebellious, fallen heavenly beings someday.
Whoa.
Right? So when Paul says, don't you know you'll judge angels, he's basically saying, look at the incredible future authority you have waiting for you in God's plan. It's cosmic. So why on earth would you appeal to a lower human court run by people with, frankly, limited insight when you have people within God's family destined for that kind of authority? It totally elevates the status of believers and challenges their whole perspective on where to find true wisdom and judgment.
That completely flips the script. It's not just about which court, it's about who we are as believers, our identity, our future destiny. And that leads Paul to question, like, the qualifications of the people doing the judging in the Roman courts. He asks, do you ask for a ruling from those whose way of life is scorned in the church? Ouch. And then, is it possible that there's nobody among you wise enough to judge a dispute between believers? I mean, that sounds pretty sarcastic to me. Is he kind of mocking them?
Oh, absolutely. He's definitely using sarcasm there. And the point is to shame them. Like you said, he's basically saying, really, with all the spiritual gifts and wisdom supposedly floating around your church, you can't find one person competent to handle a simple disagreement. For Paul, if you wanted to be someone who could mediate these things, you needed two key things. First, your lifestyle had to actually line up with the way of Jesus. And that's not just, talk, it's practical. He mentions it earlier in 1 Corinthians, how apprentices of Jesus should act. Work hard, bless people who curse you, endure hardship patiently, answer kindly when people slander you. Think about that. How do you react when wronged?
Yeah, that's challenging.
And then you've got Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. It's that kind of character, lived out day to day. That's the first qualification. And second, you needed the gift of wisdom, like God-given insight to apply truth practically. The character and the wisdom, they have to go together.
Okay, so it's about living it, not just knowing it. Which brings us to what Paul says is really at stake. Pastor Florin really hit this hard. Paul drops this bombshell. The very fact that you have lawsuits among you means you have been completely defeated already. And then he asks, why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be cheated? I mean, that goes against everything we're taught today, right? Especially for young people. The world screams, fight for your rights, win, get what's yours. This feels upside down.
Totally upside down. And that's Paul's radical point. He's saying, look, the minute you take another believer to court, you've already lost in a way that matters more. It doesn't matter who wins the legal case. Both sides lose because the witness, the reputation of Christ's community, gets dragged through the mud. He's basically saying it would be better to just take the hit, absorb the loss, than to have this public fight that dishonors Jesus. Often these lawsuits themselves are proof that something's already gone wrong. Maybe someone stretched the truth or did something shady or just put their own interests first. Things that just don't fit with being children of God.
Oh.
And that leads right into that list Paul gives in verse 9. You know, the list of wrongdoers who will not inherit the kingdom of God.
Right. That list can sound pretty harsh.
Yeah. And it's important to understand, Paul isn't trying to give like an exhaustive checklist of sins or rank them. He's pointing out behaviors that were super common in Corinth. The city known for being selfish, abusing pleasure, being spiritually rebellious, just do whatever feels good. When believers were acting like that, greedy, dishonest, sexually immoral, slanderous, all the stuff on the list, they were basically living like the culture around them. It showed that the transformation they claimed hadn't really sunk into their actual lives. They hadn't fully grasped what it meant to be part of God's kingdom.
That makes sense. It's less about specific acts and more about the whole pattern of life. And this really speaks to that pressure young people feel, like constant drive to win, get ahead, put yourself first. Pastor Florin pointed out how Paul keeps pushing followers of Jesus to go against those natural instincts, our rebellious streak, he called it, and how we need this deep spiritual transformation, a metamorphosis.
Exactly. And that metamorphosis, that real change, it starts when we actually begin our apprenticeship with Jesus.
Yeah.
Like really commit to learning from him. It's not like we'll never have selfish thoughts or temptations again. It's about what we do with them. Do we bring them under Jesus's way of life? Or do we just follow our own impulses, follow the world's way? And this is where understanding the kingdom of God is so crucial. When we decide to follow Jesus, we're not just like joining a religion. We're adopted into God's family. We become citizens of God's nation. That's what the kingdom of God is. And yeah, it's a real nation. It has its own history, its own culture, its own values.
A different kind of nation.
Totally. Its heritage is built on sacrifice, love, righteousness, everything Jesus showed us. Its culture is about peace, patience, forgiveness, trying to reconcile instead of getting even. Jesus wasn't just giving good advice. He told his followers, seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness. That's Matthew 6.33. Because everything else, how we think, act, speak, it all flows from that. It's the foundation. It's the framework for how we navigate everything, including conflict.
Right. Okay. That makes a huge difference. It's like having dual citizenship, but one citizenship takes priority and defines how you live in the other. So, putting this all together, what were the practical steps Pastor Florin suggested for us when disputes do come up? Because they will, right?
Yeah, definitely. He gave 5 really practical things to think about. First, and this is the absolute foundation, become a follower of Jesus and pursue his way of life. It's not just believing stuff, it's actively practicing, apprenticing under him. Without that, none of the rest really works.
Okay, start there.
Second, be discerning with legal tools. Our legal system can be useful, sure, but Pastor Florin warned, just because it's legal doesn't make it right in God's eyes. That's a huge distinction. You might have the legal right to sue someone, maybe even another believer. But is it the right thing from a kingdom perspective? It pushes us beyond just what the law allows.
A tough one.
Third, and maybe the toughest, the goal in a dispute with a believer isn't winning, it's God's kingdom. He literally said, take the loss if winning will negatively affect your Christian testimony. That flies straight in the face of that win-at-all-costs culture. It means prioritizing Jesus' reputation, the unity of his people, over getting what you think you deserve. It asks, what's the real cost of winning here?
Wow. Yeah.
Fourth, We need more qualified mediators, people who aren't just living consistently with Jesus' way, showing that fruit of the Spirit, but who are also praying daily for wisdom. Those are the folks equipped to help sort things out with grace and insight, not just legal facts, people who can help bring reconciliation.
Okay, we need those people.
And finally, fifth, if you are in a dispute with another believer, seek mediation from one of these qualified people and be willing to actually accept the verdict. That willingness to submit, even if it means letting go of what you feel you're owed, is key. Pastor Florence shared a bit about his own experience with mediation, how vital it is to trust the process and the judgment, even if it stings, instead of just digging in your heels for your own way. It takes humility.
Right. Humility and trust in the process within that kingdom framework. Man, this deep dive really puts a different lens on how we handle conflict, doesn't it? It's so much bigger than just winning or losing an argument. It's about our witness, who we are as God's kids, and the kingdom culture we're supposed to be living out, choosing a different path.
Exactly. And just remember Pastor Florence's final point, our adversary just loves it when God's people are at each other's throats. When pride wins out, everybody loses then. We're really called to lean on God's authority within his community, to try hard to live like Jesus, to constantly seek wisdom and to turn away from those harmful ways. Bottom line, as followers of Jesus, we are children of God, so let's live in the light of that truth. So the question for all of us is, what does living in that truth look like for you this week, especially in those moments where every instinct screams fight to win?
That's a great question to reflect on. We really hope this deep dive gave you some helpful perspective, maybe some practical tools for your own life. And if it did resonate, please subscribe to the deep dive if you haven't already, and maybe share it with a friend you think might appreciate this conversation. Also, just a reminder, if you have something you'd like prayer for, you can submit a request online anytime at agapechurch.life. Our prayer team considers it an honor to pray specifically for you. And hey, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. You can find more messages from Agape Community Church there. It's still a bit of a work in progress, but we're adding stuff and getting better every day. We'd love to see you over there too.